either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast. I'm Nicho.
And I'm Chris.
And today, as promised, we travel to India where we will be doing nacho.
So close. So close and yet so far.
Yeah, we're doing RRR.
Yes. A fantastic movie. I'm excited.
I am too. I'm honestly really glad that we decided to do this one over any other Indian movies, honestly, because I'd heard so much about this for like the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And I just never watched it before.
This one, the advertising team for RRR did a phenomenal job, because everyone who is in this movie, it makes sense that this is a huge Indian movie. This makes a lot of sense that it's and I'm going to pronounce everything wrong today, and I apologize. I did look it up. I will get there eventually. Telugu language film. Like, this is one of the biggest ones ever produced for that. And it makes sense. What didn't make sense was the mass amount of people who have, like, never experienced an Indian or Bollywood film falling in love with this solely because the RRR PR team's TikTok during COVID was off the fucking charts.
Okay, that makes sense. I didn't know why it blew up. I just thought it was because of the Academy Awards.
That is also part of it, and we will eventually get to exactly what happened with that. But no, the entire time that this movie was in production, there was a team who was dedicatedly working on putting out TikToks, putting out posts, and their original audience was the normal people you would think who are going to go see this film, the people who understand this language and regularly watch Indian films. But for some reason, the TikToks, the posts, were so good, so popular, that they made their way into everyone else's feed, and everyone got so hyped for this. And so when it ended up for free on Netflix, a ton of us were stoked. Because otherwise, I don't think a lot of us would have ever gotten to see this movie. Yeah,
no, and, well, we say that, but Netflix has gotten better with their Indian distribution, but
definitely
there's still a lot that we can't get a hold of.
Yes. Oh, for sure. I now have a long list, thanks to the two main actors and the director for this movie, and I'm going to be actively trying to watch them, because I love this film.
So, RRR, the story is by Bija Yendra Prasad, and screenplay by S.S. Rajamouli, directed by Sia Madhva, or dialogue by Sia Madhva
yes.
Bura, and Tamil dialogue by Madan Karki, and it's directed by S.S. Rajamouli. It's starring N.T. Rama Rao Jr. as Komaram Bahim, and Ram Charan as Alluri Sitarama Raju.
Yes.
And it follows a big bromance between the two iconic Indian revolutionaries.
Yes, they're characters based off of real people. The real people did not do any of the things in this movie.
No. But that's the fantasy that they led into.
Yes.
And while I'm not super versed in Indian cinema, and so I apologize if I've overlooked what some of these people are known for, Prasad is known for Bajrangi Bhajan, Talavi, Magdara, and Bahubali 2, The Conclusion.
That whole series is on my list because it's showed up so many times in my research. I think it's right up my alley. I will be watching that.
Yeah, I know nothing about them.
It's okay. We will find out soon.
Rajamouli is known for the writer of Bahubali, The Beginning, and Bahubali 2, The Conclusion, as well as Ego, which is a film I am actually familiar with.
There you go.
Which is about the dude who gets reincarnated as a fly.
Yeah.
Bura has done dialogue for Game Changer, Mali Mil Idri Rani Roju, and Kahadi number 150. Karki is more known for his work in the music department on Entiran and I Thupaki and Ego.
Yeah.
As for Raj Jr., I know they're becoming bigger now, I guess. Is known for Father with Love, Jonathan Garage, and Adai. Sharan was in Rang Asthalam,
Yeah.
Magdera, and Zanjir.
Yeah.
These are all from IMDb. This is what I had to go off of.
Totally fine. The director, Rajmouli, sorry. You should know he's one of the highest grossing Indian directors of all time. He's also one of the highest paid of all time.
Okay.
I did look through his list of movies. I'm very intrigued. He's going on the list of directors that I'm going to try and work my way through. He's also very decorated. As far as I can tell, he's never had a flop in all his directing career. Makes money with his movies, usually sets out really good stuff.
Just in the Indian market or in the English market?
In the Indian market. He cites Inglourious Bastards as one of his, inspirations of how to do this movie, because he knew he wanted to do the two historical figures, but he was worried that, they never met in real life, none of this ever actually happened, and so when he saw Inglourious Bastards, he really pinpointed that to be oh, they killed Hitler in Inglourious Bastards, and that was fine. So I feel like I can do this movie.
Yeah.
No problem.
And honestly, I am glad we waited because we do have a source for today. We have the 2024 documentary, RRR, Behind and Beyond, as well as I've done a little bit of Wikipedia research on this one because I haven't had the time to actually really dive into everything this movie references because there are quite of inspirations.
There's a lot happening. Yeah. There's a lot of people that I was not super familiar with. I also maybe stalked both of the main two actors' Instagrams because both of them are usually also in movies that I think I'd probably like, so I will definitely be getting into this. NRT Jr., or Ranma Rao Jr., he's been acting since he was a child. His list is pretty lengthy. He's also won several awards for his acting over the years. I did find it interesting that when I was going back through the old social media posts, getting people hyped for this, he was part of the reason people were getting hyped because I guess he'd been on a pretty long hiatus, 4 years.
Oh, okay.
So this was him coming back, doing some more work. People were very excited for him to be reworking with the director because they had done stuff previously, which all did very well. And then kind of the similar story for Charan. He's one of the highest paid actors in all of India's cinema, so I see why. He's also, if you can possibly guess from this film, very well known for his dancing. Shocking, I know.
I know. I mean, what Indian movie has dancing in it?
Oh, for sure. He's also worked with the director before, and both of them together have created some of the highest earning films in history, so good for them, this being one of them.
Okay.
So definitely will be actively trying to find and get my hands on some of the other films.
Yeah, I definitely want to do some more research on my own end on Indian mythology because that stuff's interesting, but
yeah, definitely.
Two of the major inspirations for this movie also come from the Hindu mythological epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, with the Ramayana being an epic of the seventh avatar of the deity Vishnu, and by the name Rama. Yeah. As well the Mahabharata being an Indian epic poem about two groups of warring cousins.
Which you can definitely see that in this movie.
And on top of that, like I said earlier, the two protagonists, Bhim and Raju, are inspired by real-life revolutionaries.
Yes, they are.
Kurama Bhim, who led a rebellion against the Nizams of Hyderabad.
Yeah, British.
Yeah.
This is all during the British occupation.
In the 30s, which partially led to the Telangan Rebellion of 1946 to 1951, which was a peasant insurrection against the princely state of Hyderabad, I don't know.
Yeah, good luck.
And it started when India was still under British rule, and they didn't get independence till 1947. So there was a lot going on, as well as he was part of the Gond tribe, which we see in the movie.
Definitely. And he was killed in 1940 by police gunfire. So he was used as a symbol throughout the Revolutionary, which definitely can see the symbolism happening in this film. They lean kind of heavily, and you can also see some of the influence with the statues that you can find of him. It's at times maybe a little heavy-handed.
Oh, it's all the times heavy-handed in this movie.
But I actually kind of dig it. It was a little bit fun to play the history search and find that I wasn't super familiar with. I only kind of roughly know dates of some of this stuff. I kind of enjoyed the little dig.
Yeah, well, and I know of the names of some of this stuff, like the Ramayana. There's an animated movie that I can't get my hands on. It's considered one of the best animated movies of all time, and it's just not available anymore.
Yeah.
As for Raju, or Alui Sitarama Raju, He led an armed rebellion against the British as the leader of the Rampa Rebellion after they restricted the tribal people's movements and basically forced them into exploitative work through starvation after passing the 1882 Madras Forest Act.
He was given the nickname Hero of the Jungle, which, again, maybe a little heavy-handed in this movie, but pretty obvious.
Yeah, especially when they do their reveals.
Yeah, oh man, the spirit animals really just get you. Love it.
Yeah. So, Chris, before we get into RRR, what are we drinking today?
Today, on this cold and chilly day, we have hot tea.
Positive energy tea, tangerine.
Ooh, fancy.
Cheers.
Cheers. Tastes like hot water.
Hot oranges-ish tangerines?
Yeah, slightly cleaner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Good. So, RRR. I like the music building in the credits because it definitely kind of sets the mood initially, where it starts off a bit pensive and then it starts to build dramatically as we get to the story.
Yeah, the music for this is all done by composer M.M. Keeravani. He has a 3-decade-long career, so if you've seen other Bollywoods, especially by this director, you've heard his stuff before.
Okay.
And his work alone has always been well decorated, but this movie moved him into the world stage like none other, so I love the music for this movie throughout the whole time. I know we've got our signature song, it's much later down.
Yeah.
But I feel like the music for the whole film keeps it really action-packed, it keeps it very interesting, it really helps this movie go along, because this movie's freaking long.
Oh yeah, no, it's what, 2.5 hours or something?
It's too much long. That's how long.
3 hours and 7 minutes.
3 hours.
Yeah.
But the music helps. The music helps keep the pace.
Well, that's the thing with the whole pacing of it. It always has something keeping your interest. I mean...
Yeah, there's always a new turn.
Yeah, and the way they use music is a little bit different than I think we've found in other Indian movies. I don't know if it's a change because the next movie we cover does kind of a similar thing, whereas the last couple we've covered...
Yeah.
There's always like a weird dance number or something.
True. I mean, it's not to say there isn't a dance number here, but, you know.
But it makes more sense.
Yeah, it's tied in well.
Yeah. And as we enter the Adilabad forest, we immediately get the first song about nature, but without a dance number.
Without a dance number.
And that's why this is interesting, is because, like...
Mm-hmm. It kind of just brings everything together, gets your perspective set on, like, where we're meant to stand, who we're supposed to be cheering for.
Yeah, well, and it does it in a very show don't tell, because it's obviously tense for the adults while the kid's having a good time singing, putting a henna tattoo, I think, of some kind, and then the white people kind of exploiting their arts and resources. 100% the resources, because it's a nice reveal of, like, okay, British rule, of course they're going to go hunting, but then it goes from, that one kill to, they've killed 11 animals and a fawn.
Yeah, a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also there's that we get the first miscommunication in this movie that sets everything into motion, which I do like that they get into it right away from the get-go instead of like trying to develop all these characters, because the little girl who's singing is bought while the parents mistake the money as, they're paying for her work. Yeah.
No, the setup for the kidnapping in this one, I think, especially from having just gone off a bit of a binge of action-style movies, I feel like this one sets it up really nicely. It's quick, it explains it well, the logic is all really well put together, but we're not dwelling on anything so that we can actually get to the part of the movie that we honestly truly care about. Because as much as she's important, she is just a plot.
Yeah, she's the MacGuffin of the movie.
She is, she's keeping us going.
Exactly, but it also sets up that the British aren't going to talk to anyone that's supposed to be beneath them.
Oh, true.
It's already super dramatic, as we expect from an Indian flick.
Yes. There's a lot of crying, there's a lot of yelling.
But it also is really heavy, especially with their talking about how Indian life is cheap, where, like, by the way, this bullet, and I like that they use this multiple times. This bullet, do you know how much it cost you? And he has, like, this whole spiel ready to talk about, like...
Yeah, he's got it, like, priced out to the ounce.
Yeah, the bullet's worth £1 by the time it's processed and sent to India and polished and all this. And by the way, that conversion is about £57
by today's standards,
or $72 US.
Yeah, which, I mean, feel like maybe we need to reconsider shipping bullets then, because that's very expensive.
Yeah,
that seems unrealistic.
Exactly. But it does get us into, like, the very, like, okay, we have something that's going to be coming down the line that this this is dramatic. This is going to be the focal point of the movie for a while.
Most definitely.
And immediately we get into the fire, Raju.
Yes.
Which starts off with a riot in the outskirts of Delhi with the arrest of another Indian revolutionary, Lala Lajpat Rai.
Mm-hmm.
But it also is important because this clearly sets the movie in around 1921 when this man was arrested and exiled.
Yeah.
But also, there is something that's really cool with this scene too.
Yeah.
So, this riot's happening, and it's brother facing brother without doing the whole Pokemon, brother, my brother.
But it's there. You can feel it.
Oh, yeah. Well, the British are cowering behind the lines. They're cowering behind this line of Indian men that they have lined up to hold the line.
Yes.
And also, there's this nice, pairing of him standing tall with the Union Jack in the background.
That's true. Yeah, no, the symbolism in this movie is on point.
Oh, yeah. And on top of that, we know he's a badass because as the people in the line around him are not overpowered, but they start to they fall over.
Yeah.
He's the one man standing against the entire riot.
And this whole scene is so unrealistic that if you had any doubts beforehand, if you had somehow not seen a single trailer for this film, the first scene maybe would have given you some idea that this might have been a slightly more based in history telling. And this scene sets you very solidly in almost the same world as kung fu movies do, where physics don't matter, punches doesn't make any sense, strength, Goku level strength for some people. And I love it. I feel like this scene set up his seriousness, his dedication really well.
Yes.
While also adding a very clear indication of what level of stupidity we're expecting.
Oh, no, exactly. But they also do a great job with, getting the feel of everything, because it's very, when he does go into the riot, because some dude throws a torch at the outpost and it breaks a photo, and so they want him arrested. And, the way that the crowd piles on him is stifling, and they did a great job with those in the crowd shots.
Yes. Oh no, the camera work for this is so much fun, because you feel like you're being tossed around, but also he still feels very in control the whole time, cool as a cucumber, standing tall, but everything's so chaotic. They do a great job of capturing that.
Yeah, well, and I think part of that too is with a little bit of the costuming. It's a very small touch, because the man that he's chasing has a more vibrant red turban than anyone else around.
Just by a little bit, but it's enough.
Yes, exactly. Enough for me to notice the difference.
I was going to say, I don't know if it's necessarily so bold as to be the most obvious symbolism, because this movie's heavy-handed with the symbolism, but it is a nice touch. Everything's well thought through, even through the action scenes.
Oh yeah. No, it establishes him as this badass motherfucker who, even if he's working for the Brits,
he's going to take care of business.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
And even when he does get his man, he that's the thing is he's going through his brothers, his fellow countrymen, to get to this guy.
True, yes.
Ignoring their safety altogether.
Yeah, he was going to complete his orders.
And when he does complete those orders, even the Brits are afraid of him. It's oh,
as
shit.
They should be. Look at him.
Yeah, he's a single man who
essentially took out an army.
Quelled the entire riots. They're okay, we got numbers, but they've got one of this guy.
Yeah.
They've got one Raju.
Yeah, that's very true.
But it all feels like it's the way they also set him up too. While he's still strong and he is this great soldier, he's overlooked because when they're in the next scene where they're doing the officer promotion, it's only Brits that are getting promoted.
Doesn't even get a call out.
Showing that even loyal, he's overlooked.
Yep, and even potentially superpowered, overlooked. The fact that they didn't even be an honorable mention, the man who took out an entire army.
Yep, and in his anger, which I think there's little things that they do with this too to really set them apart, is we see in a way to even further the personification of his strength and solidarity, is that he is lean and jacked.
Yes.
Which is a big difference from the next guy we'll see,
who is almost the opposite.
Show strength in a different way.
Yes.
That's where we get to the water, Bahim. Which this is where we have him tied into the first scene that we saw, where his goal is to get the girl back.
Yep. Gives a motive for him, gives a reason for him to be, away. on a mission.
Yeah, we get the further explanation that the Gondar are a simple and oppressed tribal people. Again, this movie is very heavy-handed. And I think
It's very heavy-handed.
Well, I also think that the heavy-handedness is probably part of what also made it successful in the U.S. is because we're told who these people are without having to do a bunch of history digging and reading up on them.
Which I appreciate, because a lot of these people I only barely knew or didn't know some of the events that this directly references throughout the movie, and I didn't feel like I was missing anything until literally the last 2 minutes of this film.
Oh, yeah.
And those were 2 minutes of, I don't know who that is. Okay.
Oh, there's Gandhi.
Yeah, I knew 2 guys in the background, and I had to go, well, there's Simba's dad up there somewhere, I'm guessing. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting, so I guess I'm good. But the rest of this film, you don't need to know anything. This movie does a great job of explaining without making you feel stupid.
Yeah, even with the guy who shows up to the Brits too, not even I like this little kind of game they're playing where it's not even hey, just heads up, we kind of want to find this girl, but they're like, oh, we don't care, or they're telling them what what happened, and they're like, what? Yeah, so what do you want us to do? And he's like, oh no, I'm not here to ask for your help. I'm trying to give you guys a warning that hey, the tiger of this tribe is coming for your asses.
Yeah, this isn't a request.
Mm-hmm. Setting up the overall threat to the Brits. That's the promise that violence will ensue.
Exactly.
And when we do finally see Boheem, he's a very nature person, strong but not trim like a movie star or action hero.
No. And I do think that both of these actors, they put in a lot of work for this movie. They both went to a boot camp, I think 6 months or something like that before this. There was I did the whole rabbit hole on the PR for this movie. And so there was a bunch of stuff being it's time to work out. We're here for months. We're getting ready for the intense physicality of this movie. But it was practical in a way too, because the filming of this movie was very grueling.
Yeah, well,
the scheduling was very grueling. So the two of them getting ripped for their roles doubled as now you're also physically fit to do how intense of the filming we're gonna do.
Well, and also they didn't want Rao Jr. to actually be trim. They wanted him to feel like an everyday strong guy.
Yes, yeah, the man who does this every day. He's not over here lifting weights. He's moving stuff.
Yeah, he's an actual person.
Exactly.
For the most part.
Minus the Vegeta-like strength.
Oh, yeah. Well, and also, there's things that this movie that it's easy to be nitpicky on stuff, but it's fun to overlook, because,
it's a lot of fun to overlook.
Well, and the way they edit it, too, he pours the blood over himself, and then, we get a pause, and then they tell him the trap set, so it's
yeah.
Maybe you should have waited for the trap to be set first?
No, I know this movie isn't technically humorous. It's not a comedy in any way, but there is some really good, breaks for humor throughout that really kind of help build, I don't know, almost the personality of the two characters. It gives them reason to feel more human and not just a war machine or this a vengeful spirit. He feels like a guy who just happens to be very intense and has very good training.
Well, he has a goal. He's trying to get his village's little girl back.
Exactly.
But also, there is other stuff with this movie too that Hollywood CGI purists who everything has to be a picture perfect CGI. If you guys are gonna watch this movie, you're gonna have an aneurysm because the CGI is
it's all over the place.
Yeah, there's times where it's really good, especially in the close up with him and the tiger,
which was used for promotion, and I think that kind of tells you which ones were done where.
And but when the tiger's running through the forest, there's parts where it's it doesn't look like it's really moving at all.
No, but you know what? It's kind of fun.
Oh,
because this movie cost an arm and a leg to make, and I kind of appreciate that we spent all of the money on almost anything but the CGI.
Yeah. Well, but they didn't go too cheap in it.
No, it looked it's still a fun movie. I will watch again. It doesn't make my eyeballs bleed all the time.
It's better than Sci-Fi Channel, let's just say that.
100 times better than Sci-Fi Channel. And while it is CGI heavy, because there's a lot of explosions, there's a lot of random symbolism that you cannot do without CGI and the tiger into the background, right? But it works because this movie is so over the top. Again, it has kung fu logic as far as it comes to action and adventure and logic. So why not have a slightly poorly done CGI animal running around? Why not have wolves chasing a man?
Yeah.
I don't care anymore. This is fun.
No, exactly. But it's also a good way to build Boheem because it shows him vigilant, quick on his feet, showing his skills instead of them talking about his
Mhm.
abilities, because it easily could have gone back to like the Brits and be like, oh yeah, this guy can do X, Y, Z. Instead, they're showing us all he's doing.
Yeah, how insane this man is.
Yeah, well, and on top of that, it also shows that he's not completely immovable. Like, he's scared in the face of a tiger. Like, yeah, he's stronger than the beast, but it's also
Which is very impressive.
Oh yeah, but it's also like it's a close call. It's almost like he didn't make it if he didn't have people around him, basically.
Yeah, it shows very much that he is not just some like godly protector of his tribe and his people. He gets his strength from them. Them relying on him fuels him.
Oh yeah, and on top of that, you feel for him as like a good character because he is very regretful in what he's doing while he's we don't know yet, but he's using the animals for his own purposes.
Exactly.
And I think that's a good way to put it, of like, he moves a lot like water, where he's very go with the flow, kind of figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
So it's a good contrast against the last scene we saw.
Yeah, no, it's very yin-yang, fire-water sort of telling of the two brothers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it works, because even though this is kind of an extreme character, we just met his other extreme, who is, steel backboned and fire eyes. So having him be this other equally strong personality, but still having him, like, spending the extra time, showing him having this care, having these fears, balances him out.
Well, and on top of that, it shows, there's another bit with this too, where it shows how removed they are as a tribe. Because he brings up that he's been searching for 6 months before they decide to go search Delhi. And he's disguised, by the way, he's also disguised as a Muslim, something I'd know until he revealed that, oh, by the way, I'm not a Muslim. It's like, I didn't think you were.
You know what? It's not for us.
Yeah. But it's also just like, the one guy knew, the one guy who went to Delhi to tell them that, hey, this guy's being an asshole.
Yeah.
They don't put the 2 and 2 together that they know where this guy's at. Like, they know the guy's name.
No, well, okay, but he does go by a fake name when he's disguising himself. He calls himself Akhtar.
Yeah.
So, like, and I don't know, maybe he has a very generic face? I don't know. I don't feel like there's that many people who can punch a tiger, but...
No, I'm talking about the white guy.
Oh, the other guy.
The Sir Scott or whatever his name is.
Yeah, he stands out like a sore thumb. I don't know what he's doing.
Well, that's the thing. They spent 6 months and they don't know where the guy who's in charge of, like, this entire area lives.
Granted, I do think this is a part of the movie that makes more sense if you understand the area and, like, a little bit better, because they're based on real people who are very, removed. They are very remote. And so, like, I can kind of see, like, that logic, like, working in well.
Oh, you say that, but later on when Raju is, asking around trying to find the other guy.
Yeah.
Bahim tells him, oh yeah, why haven't you asked me? I know everyone around here.
That's true. Yeah, no, there's plot holes in this film, but also like, I don't know. It's fine. Yeah,
it's something that just, like, for me is like, okay, you guys are trying a little too hard to make them seem removed.
Yeah, I get it.
But I do like his dedication, because it's showing a different type of dedication compared to Raju, where he's working as a mechanic undercover.
Yeah.
And when he makes the British look silly, he takes a beating for it, showing the two different sides of, like, they're both on, you can tell they're on some type of mission.
Exactly.
But this one's willing to take the beating, whereas the other guy's the one doing the beating if he has to.
Yeah, true. One's looking for power to get his way, and the other is going to do everything he can to get there
within his power.
Exactly.
Yeah, but immediately it's that threat does come through, because the Brits are going to be taking action, knowing nothing about this man.
Yeah. Having seen both of them do anything at all, I feel like this is a silly idea, but okay.
Well, I mean, they're taking action. It's strong enough to believe that, okay, this man's been a threat, and that's the thing is, like, we've seen this man, so that's
true. We know
it's that time bomb of, we know what this man is capable of.
That's true.
The Brits don't fully know.
That's true. That is true.
Well, it's also a way to start putting our two characters, the fire and the water, together, giving that carrot of special officer, and of course Raju took the bait. But here's the thing, that I think was, I think you could easily overlook this, but the only reason he's even allowed to do this is because the leading officer from the last scene spoke for his action, saying, hey, by the way, I can vouch for this guy, which is a big thing because but that's the sad thing is like, he needs a white man to vouch for him to be even able to be given this mission.
That's true. That's a good point.
And on top of that, like they said, oh yeah, if you find this man, we'll give you special officer. And then they change the carrot onto him of like, by the way, dead, you get the bounty. Alive, you get the promotion. So it's like...
Yeah, they keep moving the goalpost.
Because they think that, okay, to take this guy down, he's going to have to kill him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
And then I do love that we go from this to immediately he's got a full beard and blending in with...
trying to just be one of the guys.
Making suspenders look cool as hell again.
Oh, yeah, no, actually, though.
Oh, no, exactly. Like, I'm like, maybe when I'm back in shape I could wear suspenders.
Yeah, no, the costuming in this movie is phenomenal. Do I know if it is period correct? I don't think it is, based off of my limited knowledge of the 1920s in Britain. And no knowledge of the 1920s almost anywhere else in the world. So, but they all look cool.
The only thing I know is apparently it was roaring.
Only in some places.
Yeah, true.
So, like, do I know anything? No, but do I know that these characters look really badass in pretty much anything that they were put in? 100%.
Yeah, well, all this is just a good building to set both of them in motion. Like, just, it's a long introduction to them.
It is, but it kind of feels necessary. Because I feel like if we had rushed this, like, intro, the story behind both of them, the, like, clashing and the tension that the audience is the only one feeling coming up after they meet and, like, become the true bromance they were meant to be, I don't think it would be as, like, suspenseful for the audience if we hadn't had all this buildup of like how dedicated they both are to their causes and are willing to do whatever it is for those causes.
No, exactly. And that's the other thing too, because like even though we have all that, it does get a little bit derailed when we see further oppression from a worker getting beaten for forgetting his badge, and the one Brit woman standing up for her. Jennifer.
Oh, Jennifer.
Because it's an Indian movie. We have to have romance on top of the bromance.
Well, yes. And there is kind of a good reason. The director always saw them as just best friends. This is a movie about two heroes, his heroes, becoming best friends in like a very fan fiction sort of way, right? But at the same time, he didn't want their relationships to be the only thing grounding them, because he wanted it to be focused on just their friendship. So introducing some like interesting romances on the side kind of helps solidify that they are the best friends ever if their relationship can be tested by love. In a little bit of a sense. Granted, I also think a lot of it just has to do with like, it's fun to have a silly side romance on the side. And you know what? She's needed later for plot.
Yeah, I mean, they did that with... Ridley Scott did that with Gladiator. Had to have a little bit of romance to keep the women folk interested.
And I do think it kind of worked, because while she is one of the most boring characters in this movie, which is saying something, because, like, there's hardly any, like, lull moments in this movie, so being boring is kind of difficult to do. She's not that distracting. I feel like her presence is in the movie just enough for me to enjoy her presence.
She's in there just enough for Beheem to see a way in, but it just makes that the romance a bit awkward and feel a bit pointless at the end. Other than like she was just kind of that one way into the complex.
I mean, definitely. I don't hate it. It feels useful later. But that's fine. It. It's kind of it.
Yeah, it just feels like a tool to keep the plot going.
A little bit, but I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah, no, because it doesn't focus on it heavily.
Exactly.
Kind of like when we talked about Rush Hour, there is that kind of side romance.
There is technically a side romance, but nobody cares about it.
Yeah, because it doesn't focus on it or really go anywhere with it.
And it's not about cars.
Nope. But Roger's infiltration of the revolution is a solid plan. I do like that he pushes the extreme and is mocked for his suggestion of assassinating Scott.
That's true.
But it's better on a rewatch, especially when his goals are revealed, since looking back, it feels like there's a bit of sincerity to his, like, maybe I can get my way with force if we do it this way.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
And also, the other thing, too, that I like about this scene is it's his own little type of bait that to try and get out his target. He's hunting in his own way,
Mm-hmm.
in a way that the Brits can't do because he blends in with his people.
Exactly. They stick out like sore thumbs. They'll never see him coming.
Mm-hmm. It's also, we get a little bit of fun action because the other guys are trained a bit too well.
This is true.
And do the whole, okay, I 100%. He totally stole this from Inglourious Basterds.
He did.
Now that you bring that up, because it's the same one with the German the Brit guy counting wrong.
Yeah.
It's him saluting
the wrong way. Yeah.
See, that's cool though. That's
it's
like,
a nice touch, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But it's also a way to put the purist dude Bohem on edge because now he knows he's being hunted in basically a new territory that's he's not familiar with. Whereas, like, he's confident when he's in the forest hunting.
Exactly.
Even when his plan doesn't go well.
Yes. Now he's in a new environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's all these like little building of scenes that I think really put RRR ahead of some of its contemporaries.
Definitely.
And granted, I've seen a couple, but I haven't seen a lot, so I'm not super versed in this genre.
I wouldn't say I'm overly versed. It is a recent interest and passion, but I would argue that RRR is maybe my favorite current example.
Yeah. And on top of that, there's parallels between the two of it's starting to feel a little impossible for both of them.
The parallels are never ending with these two.
No, never. But
they are truly two brother souls passing each other, mirroring each other throughout this whole movie.
And finally they cross because it's a time of need as, well, one, it's starting to feel impossible for them. They cross just in time as they need each other because, oh no, a tankard explodes and a kid is in danger in the river.
This is the most wild scene. This was one of the main, like, promotional runs. This was, like, a big trailer release, was, like, this bridge scene in, like, parts.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing that trailer and being totally sold on this movie. Because beforehand I was like, well, I've seen other like action movies where it's not actually that heavy-handed on like the crazy action. It's more of like, oh, they CGI'd wolves while you're running. That's cool, but like, meh.
Yeah.
I saw this scene in the trailer. I saw this scene actually in the movie. Loved it. This action makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
This physics makes no logic.
Oh yeah.
The mirroring of the two guys as they like, without any words, just look deep into each other's souls and nod and like start sprinting at each other.
Here's the thing: is like
poetic.
I love that it's that very their eyes met across the crowd, but it's also I love when movies and shows like do these complicated hand gestures and they completely understand the plans. Like it makes me think of there's a part in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure where like they do the hand signs and it's like, oh yes, I can see your underwear. Like,
yeah. No, this one's even stupider than that because they don't even have all these elaborate. Like one guy has elaborate hand gestures, but you don't feel like the other one's truly understanding him. He just beams his thoughts like my dog asking for snacks into my soul.
Because they're one in spirit.
They are. No, and it's so egregiously beaten to your head in this scene that these are two twin flames in the night, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're the poeticness of the two of them, one being the water, one being the fire, like is so overdone, but I love it. It has the exact same feel as all of the silly kung fu movies that I've loved over the years. This feels like every superhero film I've ever wanted wrapped into one. Yeah,
well, and so that's the other thing too, is like it makes them feel like everyday superheroes. I mean, this is where the bromance is born.
Oh, for sure.
And the director even said like he hates metaphors, but he had to do something in this one because the kid is supposed to represent India.
Yes.
They're surrounded by fire, and it's also coming together because I didn't pick up on this until he reveals it.
Yeah.
But Bohem's a Muslim.
Yes.
And Raju's a Muslim in disguise, and Raju's a Hindu, which it's this movie is the epitome of India coming together to once again dunk on the British. Yeah, shielded by their flag from the flames.
And it's beautiful, and is it way too much? 100%, but I really don't care. I will say, though, this was the first part of this movie that I was egregiously hit with the fact that I was watching, like, the most India-proud movie. Like, if India had a bald eagle scream equivalent, which, I don't know, probably they do, I could feel it throughout my living room. Yeah. In the same way that, like, watching a countryman, like, salute the American flag while, like, the NSPCA In the Arms of an Angel happens.
Yeah.
It had the same feeling, and I, as an American, could feel it. I was like, wow, this is heavy-handed, but I kind of like it. It's kind of fun.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's also cool, too, because, like, after they save it, they meet underwater and shake hands.
They bro hands again.
Yeah, they would get the whole RRR, Rise, Roar, Revolt, 1920, which, here's the other thing, too. Them meeting underwater is a nice touch because there's fire underneath the water from the tankard burning, so it's truly... Fire and water.
Fire and water meeting. The name RRR, there was like a little bit of like, oh, our fans could kind of name it. He had the idea originally. Then when they went into production, RRR was like officially like the name of the production. Mm-hmm. But they're like, well, it needs to stand for something. So they had a whole bunch of people like suggesting stuff. And like none of them were too far off from what I think the director originally was envisioning. And so he was like, yeah, that one's good.
Yeah.
Stick to that one.
Like the one assistant in Titanic, what a woman would do for a good fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is very similar, and so I appreciate that because I, up until rewatching this, like, forgot that there was a subtitle to this. I've always just called it RRR. Yeah. And the funny thing is it even works in its original language. Like, the acronym for Rise, Roar, Revolt works again. It's RRR.
Nice.
Can I pronounce those words? No, I cannot.
I mean, we butchered names already to begin with, so...
Rodam, Ranam, Radehem, I think is how you say it. I'm probably way wrong.
Oh, I've been told by one of my coworkers that told me how to pronounce it, but the last movie we did, Pogliat?
Uh-huh.
That's not... I mispronounced. I forget how you say it. It's like Poglot or something.
You know what? I apologize, but I did enjoy this movie.
Yeah, hey, we can say RRR.
I can, which works out really well, because I honestly do think that also helped a lot with the international audience, because I didn't need to try and pronounce or spell anything.
Exactly.
It sounds terrible, but it did help.
The next scene is probably one of my favorite, so I generally don't care for too many montages.
This movie's nothing but montages.
Yeah. But
this is nothing but a 3-hour-long montage.
But it's the bro activity montage.
It's so bro.
Yeah, I mean it's them.
So bro.
It's them climbing people, fishing, sharing meals. But
they become attached at the hip.
Yeah, but I mean, yes and no. It shows them on their separate missions too.
But when they're on those separate missions, what are they doing? Mirroring each other. Mm-hmm. It's proof that they are maybe just the same person.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean. And on top of that, one's riding a motorcycle, one's riding a horse.
You know, one's more modern, the other's more traditional.
Yeah, which is revealing for Raju if you don't know where his arc is going.
That's true.
So, but it's also just like, there's other weird things of like them frolicking and stealing a goat.
Yeah, that's true. No, they get up into like young boy shenanigans. They're children again.
Yeah, and also like there's other things I have questions too. Like, there's a part where like, Bahim is feeding the tiger that they've captured and got into the city.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, it's
don't worry about it.
No, exactly. It's just like stuff like that. It's like, how?
Don't worry about it.
But on top of that, like, there's also solid visuals showing the divide between them, turning their heads opposite ways, and like the space between them is barbed wiring. So it's like, it helps with the visuals, but the song itself.
Yeah.
Over this is just so, like...
It's very cheesy.
They're both on their missions, but they don't know the secrets. Will their friendship really last?
Oh my gosh. This whole section, almost all the way for like another 2 or 3 scenes, felt so strongly of like those webcomics of Will They, Won't They, where every single chapter ends on a cliffhanger, which have been my new favorite thing to read. And this whole section of this movie felt exactly like that, of like every time anything slightly related to the plot would happen for a half a second, you're like, oh, will this ruin their friendship? Will they find out about each other?
No, instead they're doing, actually, no, it does tie in later, because there's a part where one's doing pull-ups on the tree and then the other one is carrying him on his shoulders.
Yes.
Ah,
yeah.
Yep,
yeah.
They worked in little stuff here and there. But the montage, here's the thing I will say about this montage. It does build their relationship up real quick.
It sure does, and it does feel very genuine.
But it does feel, yeah, that's the thing. It feels very genuine because it's also important for them to have this relationship built up real quick.
Yes.
Because Raju has a small reveal. We finally get some more about him other than his police officer. He's got a secret. He has secrets himself that he has a significant other named Sita.
Yes, and that's the whole reason he's doing all of this stuff. Because honestly, without Sita's existence, his logic of why he is the super soldier he is would potentially not track for such a strong statement of a movie.
Well, I think it would still track, but Sita's important to reestablish connections later.
Definitely. And I love the way they do her, because she feels a whole lot like in high school when someone's like, no, I have a girlfriend, she just doesn't go here. Sita feels that way for almost an hour. Because even though we get little wispy clips of her, it's always in that dead wife sort of situation where is Sita dead? Is Sita real? Is Sita in Canada? Where is Sita? And so it kind of works though, because the payoff for her at the end feels more like oh man, they've really the distance in time is 1920s distance in time.
She's a clue that's necessary for down the line.
And I also think she's a good parallel with the way Jenny's relationship works, where they're there together, it's just more of a convenience, and yeah, she's pretty, yeah, there might actually be a thing, but really it's more of I can use you to get into the palace, whereas Sita feels more like you are my reason for being here in the first place. Yeah. It's a good parallel, I think.
And we will actually talk about her more next week in our micro review.
That's true. An actress who, this was one of her first goes, I think.
I don't know.
Just kind of based off of the quick searches I did on the other movies, because I loved this actress, especially in the next one we talk about. And she's another one from this movie that's on my list of people to be watching out for more of their movies. Yeah. So she did a great job.
But I do also, even after that, they're still building up, their little schoolboy friendship.
They're so cute.
And
they're so tee-hee giggling through the field.
Well, and it's also so cheesy, too, because, while Raju is trying to hunt down Bahim's brother... Yeah. He never shows his drawing to his new best friend.
That is a little weird, because you do kind of get this, okay, do you know? Mm-hmm. You gotta know.
Well, no, that's the thing is,
they're too busy being bromance to realize that he hasn't done the one thing he's supposed to.
He's blinded by friendship.
That is true.
That is true. And on top of that, when he goes to show him the paper and it falling off and falling into the mud, and then Bahim getting distracted by Jenny, it's just it's a little too cheesy.
It's so cheesy, but I kind of like it. It's fun.
Yeah, well, and it's also, it's a way to, delay the fight. Mm-hmm. But it's also a way to show that Raju is a real bro on top of, what all the little montage of them hanging out, because... Very true. He's being a menace to society, dropping the nails to be the best wingman to... Hey, by the way, he can give you a ride, Jenny.
Oh, yeah, look at this guy. Isn't he so handsome?
Yeah, but it also builds Bahim as, this... cute, awkward, country bumpkin a little bit.
Yes, it gives him more of a characteristic other than just guardian. Mm-hmm. And it also, the whole scene also brings Raju down from iron rod up his ass to something a little bit more personal, and kind of you can start to see that okay, maybe if he wasn't in the military, he would be a different person. Yeah, he's a likable guy compared to what we saw the first time. Yeah, because the first time we saw him, terrifying. Mm-hmm. Well, in Bahim, we've seen him fight or capture a tiger, and he's having difficulty talking into a woman. Partially because it is cute. Partially the language barrier, but if there wasn't a language barrier, I still think he'd have a hard time. I think he 100% would be one of the guys to be no, women make me a little nervous. She's too cute. I can't say hi. Yeah. It's no, you're giving her a ride home. You guys have to sit together for 30 minutes. I feel you, Bahim. But even his and Jenny's montage are actually important too, because it does lead to giving a clue to find Molly. Yeah, and it also does feel a little bit more genuine on the two of them actually liking each other, and it just kind of works out that Jenny's a tool to get into the palace later. Because I do think if we'd skipped all this, it would have just felt disingenuous to Bahim and his character. Yeah, and it's it's not done in a way where it's oh, this is put in here because it's convenient. Yeah. It actually serves a little bit of purpose. While the romance towards the end does peter out, it's not necessary, but in the beginning it feels okay, there's something going on here. Mm-hmm. And also I love that Bahim is just a
casually an awesome metalworker real quick.
Oh yeah, no, by the way, I've also got this second side job I do occasionally that I'm happy to be very good at.
Well, it does, sometimes it does make a little bit of sense too, because like, I was talking with my mom a few weeks ago, and she brought up that her grandfather was also a blacksmith. Like, he had a shop and everything, but she didn't realize until she was much older that it was an actual like blacksmith shop. And he was repairing tools, not just being like repairing the farm equipment.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where like it feels like it's taken out a little bit, but then you remember that he's a forest person. They have to repair their stuff.
Yeah, he's got to be multi-skilled.
But I do like when we do finally see Molly again. She's shot behind bars, and that's the first time we see her again.
Exactly.
And like the little hope she gets with the bangle is nice too.
It is.
But there's also the little bit too where Jenny's is escorted back of like, you can't go out with these natives.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know how dangerous they can be. It's like, there's always that little bit that...
There's always that little bit of extra.
Yeah, that we have to bring back that, okay, well, Behem and Jenny do like each other. There's still this cultural divide of... Yeah. We're still in British-occupied India. It's the 20s. It's not a good time for them.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, because also, like, there's another part. This is probably one of the best scenes of the movie. The party time or picnic time.
Love this scene.
But, like, even them having to be invited to, like, even being allowed to go.
Yes.
I do have some questions because it was Behem who was invited, not Raju.
True.
And there's no question as to why he's just able to come along with them.
Yeah, because they're sewn together at the hip.
I guess.
I genuinely feel like Behem getting invited is the same as, like, when a couple gets an invite and, like, oh, we've invited, example, my husband to go somewhere. If I show up, you shouldn't be shocked, because we are, in fact, surgically sewn together. So, like, I feel like they invited Behem and were like, well, I guess Raju's coming too, but there's lots of other people here. He can find someone to talk to. Well,
I mean, Jenny seems to like Raju as well.
And I feel like Jenny likes Behem, like, genuinely, and would see that he has a best friend. It'd probably be more comfortable for him to, like, bring his best friend to the weird party.
Raju's there to translate.
That's probably the legal reason.
That's exactly what it is.
That's probably the legal reason, but I also think Jenny is smart enough and into Behem enough to be like, yeah, you should bring a friend. So that way it's not just you and me hanging out the whole time.
Yeah. Well, it's also necessary because he's still got to have his wingman. I mean, we get
the
asshole posh boys putting him down, showing all the dance styles he knows.
Yeah.
But I do like that while he knows all this stuff, it's like, but can you do the Desi Nacho?
Yeah, that's so stupid.
Which, that's the thing. I don't get dance-offs. They make no sense to me. Like,
I love a dance-off as someone who cannot dance.
Well, it's just like, I don't get dancing, and then on top of that, I don't understand, like, how they quantify, like, ooh, that dance is better than that one.
But this movie answers that question. They pick a dance, in this case, to the song Natu Natu, which, award-winning song, first Indian song to win an Oscar.
Says Nacho a lot.
Does say Nacho a lot, which should appeal to you. Also, this song is the, like, first, and I believe still only, Indian film to win an Academy Award because of this song.
Oh, did it?
I think so. So, congrats there. But also, they make it very clear. We're going to dance to this song. Here's the dance moves. Last man standing wins. Yeah. It's not necessarily a dance-off. It's an endurance competition.
It works. It serves its purpose. I mean, all the women go for it, and then even the bully and the Brit guys get into it.
Song and dance can go across cultures, but also show that Indian song and dance is the best.
It also shows our bros are in sync, much like Shinji and Rei in Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Exactly. And on top of that, this song is so bangin' that this was the entire, like, advertised department for this movie for months. Months before this movie even came out. And all of us had this song stuck in our heads, even if you hadn't seen the movie.
Yeah, it's entertaining. Like, it's a good scene. Like,
it is.
It's one of those, because that's the thing we talk about with Indian movies, is like, there's kind a lot of
song.
There's song, there has to be dance numbers, but this is one where maybe this is something that's changing, because like when we started getting into this 6-7 years ago, there was like that these are the rules for Bollywood films. It has to have this number of dances, this number of songs.
And they kind of almost felt in the same way that Disney musicals, like, were just singing to be singing, not necessarily to, like, have anything. Bollywood kind of felt the same in a lot of ways, or at least the ones we could get a hold of here.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like now the ones that we've been watching, maybe a little bit better tied in. Some of the soppy songs might be a little bit much for my taste still, but I do feel like the action ones have gotten a little bit better as far as, like, writing the song and dance numbers into the plot.
Yeah. Well, it's also the turning point of him actually winning Jennifer's heart, and...
This is true. Nothing moves a woman quite like a dance-off.
Yeah, well...
We know that. Dirty Dancing proved it.
Cheese.
That's true. She's also good logic.
Yeah, but it's a way. It also gets him into the interior for coffee.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
And at this point, you start to feel a little bad because you kind of do like him and Jenny's relationship. It's cute, and you kind of are rooting for them. And then you realize that he's gonna have to use Jenny to get what he needs.
He is using Jenny, and here's the thing too. Why it's a little bit sweet and sour because. Yeah. Raju is helping with this, not knowing that what Bahim's goal is.
Yeah, that's true. We're betraying twice over. The worst.
Yes.
But the drama, so good.
Yeah. But we do get a little weird turn to this movie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because for some reason, and I guess maybe I didn't pick up why it was, Raju starts to have some suspicions of Bahim. Yeah,
there's little pieces that he puts together. I think he finds a piece of paper or something that, like, starts to give him hints as, like, oh, my friend isn't telling me the whole truth.
Yeah.
And then, like, just all kind of, he's, of course, the best policeman, so he does figure it all out.
Yeah, and finds his man. But that's the other thing, too, is, like, there's multiple scenes of Bahim going into his office, and, like, he's got books all around him of, like, I don't know what the purpose of the books are, but...
Look, this is in the 1920s. He can't Google things. You gotta look it up in a book.
What's he looking up in a book, though?
Maybe he has big questions, like, I don't know, what color are cows? I don't know.
Why would he be looking for color of cows if he's trying to hunt this guy?
He's a detective. Maybe these are all clues that lead to the answer. I don't know. You watched Batman. Figure it out.
I mean, wait, Adam West Batman?
Any of them, really. He's got to know all of the facts about everything so that he can be the best detective.
I don't
so
buy
he can
it.
get that he can get the promotion that he so desperately wants.
Yeah, I don't buy it.
Maybe he's studying to take the bar test next and be a lawyer. I don't know. I don't know his free time. I don't know his hobbies. I mean, I do. I just watched a montage of them, but, like, I don't know them all.
Yeah, I love the hobby of frolicking through a field and stealing goats.
You know what? It's a solid hobby.
What were they going to do with the goat?
Well, that doesn't matter. They stole it.
They didn't steal it. They got chased by the shepherd kid with a stick.
That's true. Look, I mean, they're young and free and happy. Let them be.
Sure. But Bahim does get into the house, which it's very decadent.
It's so fancy. So British.
Yeah, and there's, like, little bits of... Actually... There's something I just realized with this, because I knew the purpose of this scene was also to set the timer for Scott's return in, like, a couple days.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, she's telling all this to Bahim. Bahim doesn't understand a single word of what she's telling him. It's all just for us as an audience to know.
Yeah, Bahim probably knows, like, at this point, 15 words. There's no conversation happening.
He knows Jennifer.
That's true. He does.
Yeah.
Good for him.
But it also is a good way to show that Bahim is from a different world. He just doesn't understand all this stuff that's happening.
True.
And also we get this... I forget his name. I have it written down later. But there's one guard who's an asshole to him.
That's true. It's true.
That dude gets his comeuppance.
Very good. We love it.
But it's also his chance to explore finally finds Molly. Which also they're between bars, which a nice little touch I wouldn't have thought about.
Yeah.
It's putting them in their own separate quarters away from the Brits, technically, where it's like,
oh, true.
You can't get to the main entrances. You can't get to, like, the main living areas.
Yeah.
You're kind of in your own little prison wing.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but it is heartfelt. I mean, it's renewing the push to save her.
Yes, it's bringing the attention back on the actual story and less on the bromance. We've had our fun. He needs to focus now.
Yeah, it's time to get serious because we have a torture scene now.
Exactly.
And it is rough because we do see Raju break in different ways. So we see him torturing a fellow brother, Bahim's brother. But it's also like you can see that like he doesn't want to do this now because we've seen that at his core.
He is a good guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's hating that he's betraying his best friend. Get some flashbacks of Sita.
Yeah.
Which it's here's the thing: the flashbacks I think are fine in this one because it's done more of like a dream sequence than anything, instead of like, go back to explain this entire history.
True, and
I mean,
also,
we get that, but it's more dreamy there too.
Well, and also like this movie's so over the top and all over the place with all of the symbolism. What's one, flashback on top of everything else that has happened? That I don't really care.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me. It doesn't feel out of place.
No, not at all. And even then, like, the snake trick.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's such a cheesy moment of, like, this snake crawls up to this guy and he just happens to grab him at the perfect timing.
Yes.
Behind his back, too.
Yes.
Which, it's like...
very over the top.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh no cure for the branded craft venom, which lasts, like, all of 2 seconds. Before it's like basically like, oh yeah, by the way, we know how to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And we get the establishment that the party is the only time to save Molly.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, I mean,
we have to have a timeline, because honestly, this movie has shown that like they've kind of eaten up all of the free time they had toying around.
Yeah, it also gives them a reason to like be wandering the streets to stumble upon Raju banging a pan.
Yeah.
Which, this is like where the movie gets really cheesy too, is Bahim is like, oh no, I know this guy. He's a good guy. Oh, this is the branded craft snake bite. It's like, how
would you know that?
Well, and on top of that, like, it's the part of like, he's like, oh, I'll take off my thread to do this.
Yeah.
And this will be the way to cure it.
Okay, this is the one thing that like they did not emphasize this enough for me to understand what was happening with the whole like my holy thread. They did not emphasize this enough, I think, in the movie to, like, hammer it home. Yeah,
it's just kind of a moment of, like, and maybe it's just a cultural thing that we don't know.
True. That was what I chalked it up to, is just like, oh, no, this part of the movie must not have been for me. Because I was, like, confused for a hot second.
Yeah, but it's also that moment, like, even Raju, like, in the pains of potential death, he's putting the two and two together because the other guy had that holy thread on him, too.
Oh my gosh, everyone's got the same necklace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it maybe could have been emphasized just a little more, but also this movie's very long, so like don't do that.
Oh yeah, because I mean we don't need it because there's also the here's the other thing too, is like he's putting the two and two together, but even in like his potential dying, like Bahim is like, I believe you'll come through this, but I have a secret for you.
Yeah.
I'm not Muslim. I'm actually Bahim of the Gondu tribe. I'm the man you've been... He doesn't know that he's being hunted by this guy, but it's still just like... It's kind of that funny thing, because like I also didn't realize that he was supposed to be Muslim in or disguised as a Muslim in my first watch.
Yeah, it's not super well advertised.
No, and again, it's like those cultural things that we probably didn't pick up on because... Probably. That's not a big thing in our lives.
That's true.
But now he's conflicted because he has goals, and we have little flashes of something traumatic that will be popping up very soon.
Very true.
But I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a good moment still. It's
yes. Oh, for sure.
Like even if the thread wasn't there, the revealing of like, by the way, I'm Bahim,
and it feels like the ultimate bro telling, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like, oh, we waited until the last second to not tell each other this big secret in our lives.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. Because here's the thing: is Bahim is potentially never going to see Raju again.
Exactly, because they don't know. They still don't know about each other.
No, exactly. But that's the thing, is like he's going to tell him like, it's basically his way of telling him, if you survive, this is how you can find me. Is here's my real name. You're not going to find a guy named Akhtar.
Yeah, he doesn't exist.
Exactly. Which now we get to probably the most epic
part of this movie.
The party crashing scene.
It's so over the top. This is the party crash of a lifetime.
Amazing wire work.
There's no gravity. There's no logic. And things that you didn't know were a possibility for a party crashing scene, now on the table.
sun bears. People forget that sun bears are one of the most dangerous bears out there.
Which is terrifying because they do look like men in fursuits.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like it. They make me uncomfortable.
Yeah, don't mess with sun bears. Don't mess with bears in general.
I try not to. Bears in general seem like a nope thing. But yeah, did you think that you could do this by yourself? What if all of those animals that you've seen him collecting in the background?
We've only seen him collect the tiger.
And a goat.
No, he remember.
Oh, he did have to give back the goat.
They dropped it. They didn't even give it back. The kid chased them away.
They could have had a goat.
Yeah,
but instead, he's been out here collecting the whole zoo
or was he
to turn on them.
Was he collecting the goat to feed the zoo?
Maybe, because the zoo's dangerous, man. We got wolves, we got bears, we got tigers.
He takes the leopard that jumps at him and throws him at two other guys.
Oh, that's right, yeah. And, I do appreciate that the CGI animals do feel like they don't have a side. They just kind of attack whoever they see.
Yes, no, that's exactly what I like about this. It is pure chaos, and it's indiscriminate chaos from the part of the animals.
And this feels really smart because clearly the only person who can take on these animals is the Jungle Man himself. We already know he can fight off tigers and stuff.
Yeah.
So this is brilliant.
Yeah, and on top of it, Robert gets his comeuppance. He deserves his death.
Yes, we all enjoy watching that. On top of having, numerous fire and explosions and things happening in the background to keep us all entertained.
Well, on top of that, what's cool is when Raju does show up, he calls him Akhtar, the name he knows him by.
Yep.
Well, that little last attempt at calling him brother by the name that they bonded with.
Exactly.
Yeah, which, here's the other thing, too, is, when they first start fighting, they're fighting with fire and water.
Yeah, I know, and it's very over the top, and I love it. It's so silly. It's so cheesy, but it's so good. Oh, yeah.
Well, and on top of that, there's, the despair in their betrayal.
Yes.
And, you can tell they both want to do this, but it's they have to. There's no other way. They both have their paths that they have to follow.
Exactly.
And honestly, it does make their fight more epic that we didn't get that reveal earlier on.
100%.
And also, can't kill him either, because, they're... At this point, they basically are fighting to the death. I mean, even when he grabs him at the end and they're holding their arms together and...
The great movie poster scene.
Behemoth is punching him in the face. He's just I can't do this. He's like... Yeah. It's over. Well, and the bloody tear is nice, too, before the intermission.
Very, very true. Very true.
RRR.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cheesy, but great.
Yeah, 100%.
Which I do like that they, instead of, trying to, betray Raju and move the carrot even further away, he does get his special officer position from this.
And honestly, I like it not even just from that, but because it feels a little sour. Because as an audience, we still don't truly understand why this promotion is the thing he's willing to risk his new best friend over. Because yes, we understand that you're in the military because you have a girl. We kind of think we understand that. But we don't really understand, why this course has to be what it is.
Yeah, well, we this is where we do learn this because, that's the other thing, too, is, if you're watching this and him just walking through the armory, it feels rather symbolic, but because he's still surrounded by technically danger, the guns are still dangerous, but it's also, he's good at his job, he was born to do this, and this is where the flashbacks oddly start mixed together decently enough.
Yeah.
Maybe where we get the value of a bullet in rupees.
Yes.
And turning around the value from the beginning where that was so it's still expensive, but they're saving the bullets. They're saving the bullets for their oppressors instead of
exactly.
The bullet has worth to kill this person, whereas this person's not worth the object. So
it's a good bringing it all back around, especially because the beginning was a very long time ago now. And you kind of did forget about that line just a little bit.
Exactly. But it's also a way to show, hey, there's an army. And this is the part that's kind of a little confusing, because the way it transitions into a flashback is who are any of these people?
Yeah, that's a good point. We spent a lot of time with Behemoth and getting to Raju's backstory now, while rewarding, because this is the best way to have the tragedy and the drama happen. You do kind of feel like you've missed a whole chapter of, people that he's connected to and, who he matters to, other than the girlfriend.
Or the people who matter to him, because let's be honest, this whole scene, almost no one from the scene carries on. Everyone that Raju's really tied to dies because
that's true.
the
He's
army
a solo man.
Yeah, the army never takes off. I mean, they're fighting to the end, but it's also like this. It's a weird transition too because this is where it's the weirdly more realistic and gruesome of the scenes because there's a part where like he's talking to him, he's like, "You have to fire," and like he's holding up his hand and like his fingers are blown off. Like it's like
it's much more brutal.
Exactly, and it's kind of like this weird, not weird.
It's a big juxtaposition from the like fantasy fighting we've had up until now.
Yes, no, exactly. And I think it's necessary for Raju to make it real.
Oh, yeah, and I think it explains how solemn he's become and why his friendship is so treasured. He's really had to refocus himself on what is important.
Yeah, and it's also a return. It's the returning to what the power of one can do, and that's a big theme throughout this movie that is partially explored. Is like the power of one. We saw Bahim. He technically had a team, but his strength took on the tiger.
Yeah,
Raju took on the entire crowd or the entire riot.
Yeah, no, this is very much a movie dedicated and inspired by the strength of one to either inspire or to move a mass.
Yeah, and here's the thing is like while I don't like this reveal either, it is much more impactful because we hadn't seen it's important because it's impactful because it shows that he's hated what he's been doing.
Yes.
He's been working his way from the inside to dismantle and cause chaos instead of in trying to fighting back in his own way compared to Bahim, which was fighting from the outside of like everyone could see that he was struggling against them.
Oh, for sure. Well, it also helps too because we've had two different but necessary revolutionary style goals. One is focused on just the individual people impacted. That's Bahim. He's there specifically for one person and happens to help the greater by doing that. And then we have the big picture guy, Raju, he's there to take down the big picture and it happens to help everyone else.
And arm the common people.
Exactly.
And even then, like, we do get another scene of the power of one where it's time to torture Bahim, make an example of him through public flogging, see the pain and strength in both of them. And that's the thing is, like, there's the duality in their...
They're still twin flames.
Yeah, twin flames. But, like, there's the strength of, like, we know that... Now we know, and that's why I think that reveal's important before this scene, is because Raju... It's not just the bromance anymore. We know that he's only doing... This hurts him more. In an actual good use of this phrasing... It hurts him more than it hurts Bahim.
Exactly.
And it's just like, it softens his follow through of like the whipping and whatnot.
I agree.
But it's also a collision of different methodologies here. And honestly, I hate the wife of the British leader here too, because it's like...
She's such a good villain.
Oh,
she's a fantastic villain and you love to hate her.
Yeah, she's actually the root cause of all of this.
She really is. And you kind of forget that she really is like the tangible reason for hatred in this movie because you see her at the beginning, but then the movie does such a good job of just making sure you are against the British occupation of India for the most of the movie, which is the point. That's who these heroes were in real life. That's the idea. But then having a real tangible person to also hate really helps pinpoint the like audience's anger.
Yeah, the thorn whip and just like just giving the resolve to Bahim again with like his forest song too. Like that's the other thing is like the way this movie works in outside of really the one song at the bromance.
Yes.
The way they work in his song of like how the forest gives him renewed strength and whatnot. Or if you really are one of us, you'll hear the forest.
Yeah, where you can feel the emotions in it.
Yeah.
And the tie works really well, too, back to the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, turning the public, like, the beginning of, like, okay, that leader got arrested. Well, this now potential leader has completely turned these people against them. Turning the people's hearts into weapons, I think, is what they specifically say.
I think so, yeah.
And then also just Raju having to put on a cruel face. Like,
yeah.
That's the thing, again. We know that he's a good guy.
I would say that's the rough part, but also part of the reason this movie's so good is they don't let that facade crack too early.
No.
He has real reason for doing this, and he's dedicated to that cause. And I appreciate that character arc for him works out this way. Because I feel like if they had given in too early of like, oh, you're right, this isn't the best way because I'm hurting like an individual.
Yeah.
It wouldn't feel like we have the two dualities of how a revolution can be.
No, exactly. And honestly, like the reason anything goes wrong for the Brits is because they don't think that the Indian people can outsmart outsmart them, because like the whole reason Bahim gets away in the next scene is because they decide they have to hang him in the forest and not in like a courtyard or public to like make him a...
Yeah, they could have been over and done with this, and instead they were stupid.
Yeah, back to Bollywood fashion, very dramatic car flips.
It's very cool.
And here's the other thing that I appreciate too, because Scott doesn't fall out. He, like an Indian action star, lands on the car, grabs his gun, and is like ready to go.
It's very cool, and it's so stupid. This was another big scene that like made its rounds on social media when this movie came out, of people like, hey, do you want to see a movie? Let me show you like a 10-second clip, and you're going to be so sold on this movie. Yeah. And this was it.
No, exactly. And like that's the thing too, is like it's that over-the-top action that it promises and actually delivers on, instead of like just little cutscenes here and there.
Exactly.
Like the rest of this movie is like that over-the-topness.
Yeah, yeah.
And like that's the other thing too, is Raju is having to kill, but this time he's killing Brits to save his friend. Now as
if he feels redeemed.
Yeah, like because at this point he's been finally accepted by the Brits. He's a special officer.
Yeah, he did it. He's no longer just one of those guys. Well,
and also this is the part where we see why it was great that he had access to the guns, because now the Brits are absolutely powerless without them.
Exactly. He took it and spun it.
And all at the cost of his own freedom. And like there's that bit too where he shoots the guy in the tree way behind. Again, replaying off of the skills that we saw in the flashback scene. But it's that like, we know, but Bahim doesn't know, and he thinks he's trying to kill Molly.
That's right. Yep, you love a miscommunication. Yeah.
Otherwise we don't have story. But and that's the thing too, is like Bahim can't kill him. Like, he had the chance to.
That's true.
Can't kill his brother.
That's true.
But I think that's also showing the opposites of their methodologies, is that Raju was willing to beat and torture his friends, or not his friends, his people, to reach his goals.
Yeah, to then eventually save his people.
Whereas Bahim can't do that, even though Raju just whipped the absolute shit out of him.
Yeah. Oh no, it's two different sides to the coin of like, how can you get to your goal?
And then we get the English relentless in their hunt again. The way they do time in this is kind of interesting too, because like
it is
Raju, they like, oh yeah, he's been on rations. We only give him food once a week, but now Bahim's spirit has carried over. He's unbreakable even now in prison. And I do like the way they try and hide some of the stuff, and it's like quick little stupid things of like, while they're hunting for Bahim, like they're sending armies out all across Delhi. Like, this is the one area they can be. They're hidden because of smallpox.
So scary. But it also works.
Yeah. Well, it's also, this scene's important too, because it's the way to finally bring Bahim and Sita together.
Yeah, which works out at the end because, again, she has felt like this almost mythical creature up until this point, because she's really only existed in flashbacks.
Yeah.
And so having her, like, exist feels like oh my god, you are real.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is the way she works in this movie is she continues that unbroken bond, because she doesn't have to say anything. He recognizes the necklace, and she tells him who her betrothed is.
Yeah.
And he gets all these flashbacks of everything that happened, of like, oh shit, Raju's dad he had to kill his own dad to save his people. And it's just like, oh shit, I'm like, Raju's had a really rough life.
But it also puts into perspective, like, why he's willing to go to these extremes in more than just my dad was this way, I'll follow it. It's more than just being told to do something. It really emphasizes his character, and that works really well, because, again, we've had a lot of time to develop Bahim and his reasoning and his logic. Giving Raju that same treatment, but without him necessarily on screen, works really well.
Well, it's also the turning of his ideology, where he gave up his entire goal to save Molly for Bahil. So it's like that big realization for he's like, oh shit, I just did my friend dirty.
Yeah.
And like it's that big like bonding. It's it's that culmination of the bromance being necessary to
and the final breaking of all the drama, right? Like every card that the audience knows about but the characters don't is finally on the table, and now we get to like truly see the two bromance that was meant to be come together in the most epic way possible to take down their enemies together.
The rescue is one of
it's the greatest thing on this planet.
The way, and this is where like we get the little play from like them being the bromance earlier.
Yeah, we're finally culminating all of their goofy antics into them becoming essentially children in a trench coat.
No, they are just basically Master Blaster dual wielding rifles.
They really are, and it's amazing. It's when people say this movie is a wild and zany time, this fight like jailbreak scene is, I think, maybe a solid 60 to 70% of the zaniness of this movie.
Yeah. Because
the rest of it follows, again, kind of the same logic as, like, other action movies or kung fu movies, where it's over the top, it's fun, you know, real life doesn't happen. And then they get to this scene, and nothing makes sense. It's all just so over the top. It's so goofy. But it's also very badass. The music makes it very intense. The lighting makes it super intense.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's also a great scene, too, because, like, once they're out of the prison, it reveals that they don't need their guns after all. I mean, they're using their actual skills to kill every single person that comes at them.
And it feels like they have truly become their best self. They don't need the British weaponry to kick ass. They can do it the way that they know best.
They find the arrows from the statue, like when Raju appears over that like little ledge, and like he's got the sun or the whatever lights behind him, and he's like, okay, this feels like Gandalf coming over the ledge.
I mean, it kind of is. This is more symbolism that, like, for I think most Western audience, we're not catching, and I don't care. I enjoyed it still. I had a great time.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. It's a great fight scene. Granted, some of them are like really stupid.
It's pretty bad, but also,
oh man, it's so good because like even on top, like once they have everyone taken out, it's like, oh, we took care of the jackals. Time to take care of the lion.
Yeah, okay.
Back on motorcycle and horseback. Good playing back to them being bonded like that from the bridge to the playtime.
It feels like we've truly finally reunited and become the perfect warrior.
Well, and on top of that, like, the British are using cannons to try and take care of two men.
It's so silly. And also, I believe the motorcycle eventually gets caught fire and launched in at them.
Yes, and here's the thing that I like about that shot, is they do, the way they play with it, I thought it was going to be, like, a very joking scene of, like, General Scott just standing there as the flaming bike's coming towards him. He's just as unmovable as them, and then like it starts falling down, and I thought it was going to be like a hot rod scene where it was like kind of that little bit of comedy that they're throwing in.
Yeah,
but it's the Toy Story. Hey Buzz, we missed the truck. We're not aiming for the truck. Yeah.
And it's beautiful, and it's over the top, and it's so unrealistic that you stop caring about anything for the 5 minutes that this part of the movie is happening, and it's just true joy. It's action-packed joy.
Yeah, well, it's just a bunch of explosions because they hit the armory and shit.
It's so good. It's fireworks for days.
The wife ends up wrapped in wires hanging from somewhere.
We are all pleased to see her die.
And then on top of that, Raju giving Bahil the gun as like a symbol of following through with arming his people.
Yes.
And it's a good reuse of like the bullet cost spiel that they give back to the British guy, and then like their dirtying of the sun never sits on the British Empire by the blood splashing on it.
It's perfect. So symbolic, but beautiful.
But it doesn't do it in a very gory method either, and I think that's what's great about it is we get the point. We don't have to see him blowing his head off.
Yeah, we had our gore moment in our flashback. That was our motivation. We don't need it to now enjoy our revenge.
Exactly. And it's happy endings all around.
It is! Hooray!
Guns for the people.
Yay! The people are armed.
Back with the loved ones. Jenny's with Bahil despite him killing all of her family.
That's true. Yeah. Raju and Sati are back together, reunited, feels so good.
And one last song of Independence, the actual musical part of this movie.
That's true. You kind of give this whole last musical number a pass because this movie has felt so epic and over the top that what else are you supposed to do to end this movie?
Yeah.
You can't have an end card and then the stupid credits of being and then so and so went back and played senior year football. How else are you to end this movie other than this?
Seeding the embers of the revolution everywhere else.
Exactly. And it's perfect.
Yeah, and this is the part where it's oh, that's Gandhi. I don't know who any of these other characters are or what region of India we're talking about here.
I had to look it up. It's a long list of people. Most of them are other revolutionaries. Some of them are great leaders from India. Some were, people who changed the way that, industry happened. There's a long list. It's mostly just a tribute to other revolutionaries that India has had over the years. It's really the best way to tie it up without going into a history lesson over 10 different people.
Yeah. No, it's a fun little idea because even if you don't know who they are, you can infer exactly what's happening or what the point of the song is.
And once again, you can feel the pride, the joy in the scene. It gives the exact same energy as Too Much 4th of July.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. I had a great time.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's also a nice way to, I don't think it's nice. It's a weird way to end the movie in a way.
A little bit, but it kind of works, though.
It works because it's instead of, going through, the 20 different endings this movie ends up having,
mm-hmm.
It just
kind of rolls it all together and is done.
Yeah, but instead of doing it in how we would see this in credits of
exactly.
The credit rolls and there's a black and white picture of the other revolutionaries to the left.
And I don't want that. I want this whole movie has been over the top and
mm-hmm.
zany and such a ode and love song to the revolutionaries of India that having this almost 70s photo shoot where they're Simba Lion King'd into the sky
mm-hmm.
feels right.
Oh, 100%. And then we the actual ending, we get the happiest of them all.
We do.
Molly is reunited with her mother, who isn't really dead.
Hooray! Which we all kind of forgot that Molly's mom was dead for a second. Because all this other stuff happened.
Or we all thought she was dead.
We did. We all thought she was dead. Because, again, this movie's 3 hours long, and I did kind of forget about her. Because that was at the beginning.
Yeah. No, exactly. But RRR, what a trip of a movie.
Oh my gosh, this movie's wild.
Well, and I have some questions I thought of on this movie while I was thinking about it.
I probably don't have answers.
It's just more so me pondering of why we, as a collective, for the most part, loved
mm-hmm.
RRR.
We did.
With its play on historical fiction, but then we shit on something like Braveheart.
I know the answer to this.
What's that?
RRR knew that it was silly,
mm-hmm.
and they wanted it to just be inspiring without being historical, whereas Braveheart looked everyone in the face and lied to us about the historical realism. It's the same way that he said, Inglourious Basterds inspired him. I feel like this is the same. Inglourious Basterds knew that the history was going to be messed up and wanted to just make something that was historical, but also a good, fun time. Have the action, have that dark humor, but at the same time, understand that it's not real history, and no one who watches that movie is under any assumption that this is real.
Okay.
Whereas Braveheart looked everyone in the eyes and said, no, this is based off of a real man, and it's based off of the real time period. And then when people actually did say, hey, I'm actually, a historian for Scottish lore and history, and I noticed that nothing you did was even kind of close, and they were oh yeah, no, it was just kind of sort of based on. That's, I think, where the big difference is. RRR never lied to you about this being a giant, action-packed, crazy ride that's just loosely based off of two historical figures that the director was really inspired by.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, that's kind of the conclusion I was kind of coming up with, but I also think it's the tone of how they treat it too.
I completely agree.
Because the Patriot
mm-hmm.
is fake, but it's also super serious. But I think the part of it is that it was inspired by, if Braveheart said I was inspired by X, Y, and Z,
it would have been a totally different story.
Yeah, and RRR is were inspired by, but none of that matters. Like, history, what's history?
This feels more in line with, like, almost Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, and its goofiness, its over-the-topness, where, like, someone happened to really like Abraham Lincoln, and also vampires, and wanted to make this person that they thought was cool even cooler. Whereas I do think that with, like, a lot of American history epics, instead of taking the fun route and doing what RRR or Inglourious Bastards did, where it's still serious at times, it still has a very, like, important message and topic, they take it and they make it, like, almost too centric and too, like, don't you feel deep in your bones that this was the right way?
Yeah.
This movie does a great job of ignoring that in favor of creating a feeling and a vibe of a movie.
Yeah, it took that thing that everyone hates with anime, where it's, it's friendship
we made along the way.
Yeah.
Which, no, but it's stupid. We've talked about this before. Yes, the whole friendship tagline is stupid, but at the same time, there's a reason why it works, and this movie's a great example of that. Because, yeah, a lot of the examples you brought up of, like, why they didn't work, it's because it's one guy by himself, and maybe he leads an army, and maybe he has a love interest. RRR proves that you need friends. You need people if you want to be a revolutionary.
Yeah. Even
if in real life these two men never actually met, if they had, they could have punched a tiger.
Yeah, actually making them comrades instead of, like, oh, look how great this leader was, like they made William Wallace.
Exactly. If William Wallace had, a best friend who also was hanging out with him, maybe it would have been a bit more compelling. Because, yeah, learning about one general or one leader who did all these things is cool, but you're not going to have as much fun. You're not going to have as much creative freedom, even, to have these zany adventures.
Yeah, because even, like, in Inglourious Bastards, like...
You got the group.
Yeah, you got, like, your 4 or 5 main bastards. And,
you do.
Like, you don't need to know the other one's names.
And granted, there are, like, 2 different versions of history movies. There's ones that want to be very serious and want to be more of an educational and inspiring story. And there's plenty of those. Most of them center around World War II or World War I. And then there's kind of the rest of the history movie genre. And if you're going for the rest of the history movie genre, I firmly prefer the zany ones. They're more fun, and I'm more likely to bother to look up and learn about all these people. Hell, I did hours worth of research on RRR's background of who these people were, what the symbolism was, why any of this was important, who was real and who wasn't, and I would never have done that if this movie had presented itself as, like, almost a documentary or a serious biopic. I felt compelled to learn because I was having a great time.
Yeah, and I think there's, like, there's different ways to approach it, I guess, because, like, I'm thinking back on, like, some of the Kurosawa and some of the Japanese films, because, like, honestly, like, don't get me wrong, I like the Samurai Trilogy. Toshiro Mifune is fantastic in it.
Oh, definitely.
But I definitely have more fun with those plays on historical fiction where it's a little bit more humorous.
Yeah.
Like, Punk/Samurai, or like even Samurai Champloo, where, like, Samurai Champloo, I'm so glad I rewatched that one recently, because, like, it's one of those series where it's like, there's actually quite a bit of, like, touches of history, but you guys are having joking fun with it too.
Exactly. And don't be wrong, I definitely think there's 100% a place for the more serious history-based movies. It's usually in my dad's basement. But, like, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're trying to appeal to a bigger audience, if you're trying to make a big blockbuster, which we know this director, that's what he's good at, is making a big blockbuster hit, this is the way to do it. You're not going to get as many people compelled with your, like, sad, dark, upsetting war movie.
Yeah, I can see that. And there's a couple Indian epics I want to see. I know there's one of the 2, so I can't remember which one it was that this is based off. That's, like, a 4-hour epic, and that's just part 1. There's, like, 3 parts to that one.
Yeah, it's on my list as well.
Yeah. So, Chris, at the end of the day, what rating do you give RRR?
It's close to weird, but I don't think it truly hits it for me. I think this movie's just a solid good time. There's nothing bad to complain about. I had a great time. Everyone acted in it great. The music was fantastic. Yeah, it's zany. Yeah, it's goofy. But I wouldn't say it's weird. Just because, like, there's no part in this movie that I would have to pause and explain to, like, a grandparent.
Yeah.
Like, what was happening. Is it silly? Of course it's silly. But I wouldn't have to, like, pause and explain any, like, why this part makes sense in the movie, or, like, oh, yeah, no, this is, like, meant to be this trip scene of, like, this, or, oh, this is a reference to this character, that's why it's not weird. I don't have to do that in this movie. You're just having a good time.
Yeah, I can see that. I give it good weird.
I totally get it.
But I don't give it weird for any of the cultural things. I give it weird for some of the editing and story changes. It's just like there's some like a little bit of leaps in logic that are just like, I can overlook it, but if I sit down and really think about it, it's weird. But that's the thing, is like it doesn't hit bad. So it doesn't hit the trifecta. There's not really anything bad. It's just kind of like, okay, that was awkward, but I can move past it.
Yeah. The idea that we're fighting tigers in the jungle is a little weird, but it's fun. Yeah. It's fun.
No, exactly. So do you recommend RRR?
With my whole chest. I don't think there's a person left in my life who when this movie originally aired on Netflix, I didn't immediately force everyone I knew to watch. And now that I've rewatched it again, I will be texting all of my friends and family and asking if they actually watched it or if they lied to me. Because I love this movie. I feel like this movie is top tier. You need to watch it. It's so good. It's so much fun. Yes, it's a little bit long, but, there's great spots for intermission for you to stand up and get a new snack and go to the bathroom and come back to it. I love this movie, and when it is available on DVD, I will be buying it.
It probably will never be available on DVD.
Then I shall be making my own bootleg copy.
I'm sure I could find one.
And you know what? I will go to the library this weekend, and I will clickety-clack and print off my own DVD case. That's how much I find this movie so much fun.
Yeah. No, I definitely recommend RRR. I mean, it honestly, of the Bollywood and Indian movies we've covered, I think this is the most accessible of them all, just because it is entertaining, it is informative, and I think it's that weird little, it's a weird niche of edutainment where it's like, okay, you're partially inspired by real life stuff. And
I do have hope, though, that it will be on DVD, because it makes sense this is the most accessible. This movie was the highest grossing film for 2020 in the world.
But it's also localized by Netflix. So.
Netflix does own it. However, it was also the first Indian film to release to Dolby Cinema format. So we do have that going for us. That does usually mean DVD production, at least here in the US, is a little smoother, a little quicker. So fingers crossed. This made a shit ton of money. So I'm really hoping that I can have some proper special features.
I would hope so. But I mean, the documentary is enough, I think, too.
The documentary is fantastic. And also, if you've seen this movie and you're like, oh yeah, I do love that movie, go watch the documentary. It explains a lot and is really fun.
It does. And it definitely, you can see the love and passion that went into making this movie.
100%. And also just the dedication. This movie was delayed massively due to COVID. And then these, way they had to film stuff to get it done in a timely manner and how much money they had to spend on it. Grueling. Absolutely crazy. Mm-hmm. So, getting to see the behind the scenes and how excited everyone was to be working on this was a really big hit. I loved it. Yeah,
and I definitely recommend this one. I mean, it's one that I'm surprised. I was actually talking with my brother before you came over, and he had seen it. So it's my brother mainly watches action movies and
but this is an action movie,
but superhero and very patriotic movies.
This is a patriotic movie. It's just not for America.
Okay, yeah. Now that you're putting that all together, makes more sense to me now.
No, this movie's so good. There's nobody who shouldn't see it. I'm even going to suggest it to my grandmother, who would probably not like it, but that's okay.
Yeah. So, but it's that time of the show where we are canceling season 6 bingo. We're at the end of this season. We have 2 months left. We've got one person participating, so
the bingo is done. So we had fun with it, though.
Yeah, submissions are technically closed, but if you send us something, we'll make it work.
Postpartumly, we will consider you.
We'll make it work. But yeah, no, it was fun. I'm looking forward to what we've got going. So
definitely, and we've got some ideas coming for the future. Mm-hmm. I'm excited for all of them.
Yeah, get ready because we've got some. We've got some iconic movies that are coming the way to end the season, and the kind of all wrapping up with one of our favorite childhood movies, and another one that I don't know if it's your childhood movie or not.
It was my brother's, and I was forced to watch it so in depth, but I also apologize for nothing.
Yeah. A kid's movie that's also got a lot of adultness to it.
It really does. For no reason.
Yeah, so. But, anywho, this has been the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Peace. Thank you for stopping by this here town of the good, the bad, and the weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or tgtbtw for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always, check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace.